It's 2024, and I've spent well over the past 6 months using both Apple Music and Spotify. And one question I really wanted to dive into this year is, has Apple finally caught the king of music streaming? First, let's look at Spotify. Coming in at the number 6 advantage for Spotify is playlists. Spotify has a larger number of customized for you playlists than Apple Music. While both have favorites, repeat, and discovery playlists, Spotify takes the repeat one step further with the Repeat Rewind playlist, which is a playlist of all of your favorite music you were listening to in the past. Spotify also has a time capsule playlist, plus different decade, genre, and mood mixes, all based on your taste profile. You can use Spotify's Blend feature to create a customized playlist based on you and a friend or spouse. The number 5 advantage for Spotify is the AI DJ feature.
Up now, I've pulled together a few artists you've been listening to. Maybe one or two you haven't heard, all with kind of a similar vibe.
It's great for those times when you want to listen to something but you're not really sure what to listen to. The DJ will typically start off with something you've been listening to recently and then reach back into your listening history as well as introduce you to new stuff along the way. Spotify's number 4 advantage is network effects. According to Statistica, it still dominates the industry. Why does this matter? Well, because it's more likely that your friends and family are going to be using Spotify, that means it'll likely be easier to share music and playlists with them. You can also do things like start a jam where your friends and family can add songs to your Spotify queue, and they don't actually have to be paying members of Spotify Premium to use that feature. Apple Music also has collaborative playlists like Spotify. While they don't have a jam session feature, Apple Music does have a share play car feature, so everyone in the car with an iPhone can easily control what music to play. Moving on, Spotify Connect is the number 3 advantage for Spotify. This feature allows you to stream your Spotify music to any device that integrates with Spotify, and not only that, it lets you control whatever music you have playing on a device. For example, if I'm playing Spotify through my Sonos speakers, I can open up the Spotify app on my MacBook Air and control what's playing in real time. And Apple Music doesn't have anything like this, even though, like Spotify, Apple Music is available on a ton of different devices. The number 2 top Spotify feature for me is it has a free tier. Unlike Apple Music, you don't have to pay Spotify money in order to use it. Spotify's free tier does have some caveats though. It includes ads, you can't download music to listen to offline, or play songs in any order that you want. You also can't listen to music in high quality, organize your listening queue, or listen with friends in real time via the Jam feature. Moving on, Spotify's number 1 advantage is its recommendation algorithms. These power everything from personalized playlists to the Up Next queue, the DJ feature, and more. As you listen to Spotify more, searching for songs, listening to music, skipping tracks, and adding stuff to your library, all of those actions influence what Spotify calls your taste profile. It helps give Spotify's algorithms an indication of what you're interested in and how you like to listen. For example, say you listen to the new Taylor Swift or Beyoncé album, Spotify is likely going to recommend more songs by Taylor Swift or Beyoncé to you. You also have the ability to exclude certain content from your taste profile, like a playlist your kids want to listen to, but you do not want to impact your recommendations. But what really sets Spotify's algorithms apart from Apple Music's is they're better at picking up on trends and pattern recognition without a ton of information. For example, a recent song I haven't been able to get enough of is Homesick featuring Sam Fender by Noah Kahan. You'll see in my Up Next queue in Spotify, it includes more Noah Kahan, Sam Fender, but it also sprinkles in artists I've been listening to a lot lately, like Taylor Swift's Fortnite with Post Malone, which kind of vibes with Homesick a bit, and then after that, another Noah Kahan track with Post Malone. Smart. Apple Music, though, took a different approach. I've had the new Taylor Swift album on repeat for basically more than a month, but nowhere are those tracks found in the autoplay queue. Its next suggestion was Adventure of a Lifetime by Coldplay, a track I haven't really listened to in years, though it did include 2 additional tracks by Noah Kahan and Sam Fender, which is good. But see what I mean about Spotify's algorithms being a bit better at picking up what you're currently into and listening to and then having that influence its recommendations? So those are Spotify's advantages, but what about Apple Music's? Before we get to that, I did want to quickly mention if you're thinking about switching to Spotify or another music streaming service, doing that manually is a real pain, but thankfully, I did find there are solutions out there that can make that way easier. Like the one I used to keep my playlist in sync for this video from Tune My Music, which happens to be this video's sponsor. With its powerful transfer tool, Tune My Music lets you seamlessly transfer your music between services. It works across all of the major music platforms, including Spotify and Apple Music. You can easily move playlists, albums, and your entire music library between services. Tune My Music's matching technology finds songs across platforms so nothing gets left behind. I was able to move more than 2,000 songs from one service to another with minimal no matches found. It saved me a ton of time from manually having to recreate playlists when I'm switching between services. But Tune My Music doesn't stop there. You can also set it to sync new playlist additions automatically. So if you subscribe to multiple services, it'll keep your playlists up to date across them. Tune My Music also has a nifty sharing feature that allows you to share playlists with friends. When they click on the playlist, they can add it to their music library regardless of what music service they use. With its rock-solid transfer and syncing capabilities, plus its nifty sharing features, Tune My Music is the ultimate music companion for those looking to switch or share their music. So what are you waiting for? You can start using Tune My Music for free today by using the link in the description below, and thanks to Tune My Music for sponsoring this video. Alright, now let's talk about Apple Music. Coming in at number 5, Apple Music Radio. This feature consists of live, old-school radio stations you can listen to via Apple Music. Apple has 3 main stations, all of which are free for anyone to listen to, even if you're not an Apple Music subscriber. If you do pay for Apple Music, though, you'll be able to play shows on demand through the Apple Music app as well as the Apple Podcast app through Apple Podcasts' new Channels feature. Overall, while I don't typically listen to Apple Music Radio that much, I will tune into a show when Zane Lowe interviews an artist I'm interested in, as well as Elton John's Radio Hour, which for me has been a great way to get out of my recommendation bubble and have exposure to artists I might not otherwise listen to. Alright, the number 4 advantage is the ability to purchase music through iTunes. Apple Music integrates music you purchase via iTunes right into the Apple Music app. Not only that, but Apple Music also lets you import music you obtained from other sources. And yes, you can import CDs directly into the desktop music app. And this is actually pretty important because while music streaming services in general are great, there are gaps in the music that they make available either due to licensing issues or sometimes the artists themselves will pull their earlier music from their catalog off of these services. Now, while Spotify does allow you to import your local music files into its desktop app, what it doesn't allow you to do is upload those files to a cloud library and then make all of those files available to all of your devices. Apple Music does let you do this as long as you have iCloud Music Library turned on. Coming in at number 3 is Apple Music Classical. It's a separate app that you can download and use with your Apple Music subscription and has better metadata for searching for specific pieces and recordings, as well as composers and conductors. And the playlists you create in Apple Music Classical will conveniently sync with your main Apple Music app as well. Alright, Apple Music's number 2 advantage is better library management and app design. And that last part might be a bit controversial, but hear me out. Apple Music's library feels like a library of stuff you've sorted through and categorized. Spotify's library feels more like a giant running list of stuff that you've liked and that's all mixed together and less intuitively sorted. Now, if you're mainly using algorithms and search for your music listening, this likely isn't going to matter to you. But as someone who occasionally just likes to scroll through their library and rediscover music I've added in the past, it's one thing about Apple Music I really appreciate, and with its classic iTunes interface in some parts, like looking at songs in your library, you can even add or subtract metadata columns. Now, taking a look at the apps overall, in general, Apple's app just has a bit more polish. Song lyrics are a good example of what I'm talking about. While both services have a real-time lyric feature, the way Apple implemented theirs just works better. It highlights each word as the music plays. This is definitely helpful if you want to sing along in a karaoke setting, which is another feature Apple Music has that Spotify doesn't. It's called Apple Music Sing, which uses AI to dynamically adjust how much of the vocals you hear in a track as you and your friends sing along. Animated albums are another example of Apple Music's polish. They're animated in more places in the app and really help to highlight the album artwork. The only cool thing Spotify has over Apple Music is in their Now Playing screen. It'll sometimes show a video loop of the artist, which is just kinda cool. But the other reason I'd still give Apple better marks for app design is Spotify's app is just a bit cluttered with all kinds of content. Alright, the number one benefit of going with Apple Music versus Spotify in 2024 is Apple Music has Dolby Atmos and high-res lossless audio included with your subscription at no additional cost. Spotify announced they'd be bringing high-quality music streaming to their service in February of 2021. And as of this recording, has yet to release that feature or support for Dolby Atmos music. Apple Music has more than 75 million songs available in lossless audio. They use their own codec to preserve every single bit of the original audio file. Now, what does this all mean to the average listener? Well, Apple Music's music quality is better than Spotify's. Though there is a debate over at which point people can really tell a difference between lossy audio, which means it's compressed, and lossless. Now, keep in mind, if you use wireless earbuds or headphones, most of those cannot support lossless over Bluetooth, so you'll need to plug in to enjoy lossless. Now, by far, the more important audio format that Apple Music has that Spotify doesn't is Dolby Atmos. Unlike the stereo format where you have a right and left channel, Dolby Atmos is an object-based audio format which allows sound mixers to digitally place different parts of a music track around a virtual room. This causes you as a listener to notice things like vocal effects or instrumentation more in an Atmos mix than you necessarily would in a stereo mix. And you'll also find that Atmos tracks don't sound as loud. That's because Dolby requires Atmos mixes to be at -18 LKFS, which is why they'll sound about 10 decibels quieter than their stereo counterparts. This causes Atmos tracks to often have more headroom as well as a greater dynamic range, meaning there's a greater difference between the loudest part of the track and the quietest part of the track with an Atmos mix. Typically, stereo mixes nowadays are mixed to sound as loud as possible. Not all Atmos mixes sound good though. Early versions of Atmos music have a tendency to drown out vocals with instrumentation, but more recent mixes are quite good, and Dolby Atmos can make quite a difference for classical music as well. Whether you're listening to music on a speaker like the Era 300 I reviewed or on headphones, you can really hear the sound placement with different parts of the orchestra. So those are the advantages of Spotify and Apple Music. Now let's talk recommendations. Now, has Apple Music caught up to Spotify, especially in terms of recommendations? No, but it is further along to catching up to Spotify than it was a year ago. And for me, I found myself using Apple Music more and more. Now that the recommendations just don't completely suck, I like that it supports Dolby Atmos, high-quality, lossless streaming. I also love the Apple Music Classical app, and I like the Apple Music app in general. My podcasts and audiobooks aren't cluttering the user interface, it's just focused on music. But if you care more about algorithmic recommendations, more playlists and mixes customized to you, and you want your audiobooks, podcasts, and all music in a single app, Spotify is still going to be the better choice. And I've left links to our blog post for this comparison, which includes the sources I used to help create this video and a Dolby Atmos music playlist I created if you want to try out Apple Music and see what Atmos is all about. And to see videos about the audio devices you can use with these services, like the Era 300 I mentioned, you can get to those by clicking on the playlist here. If you liked this video, you found it helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder. Thanks for watching.